Hey, it's Chris from The Verge, and I'm standing in front of the Local Motors Stratty. Now, this is a 3D printed car. Almost everything you see here comes out of a machine that extrudes plastic. There are a few components that they add on at the end, but by and large, this thing comes out of a plastic tube. And they're actually building one right here at the Detroit Auto Show. So this model is a prototype, basically. These things aren't on the streets yet, and they're not going to be available for purchase for another 12 to 18 months. They're going to come out of what they call a microfactory, which is a little tiny space where they have the 3D printer in Washington, D.C., or just outside Washington, D.C. So there's a sort of prototype drivetrain here. It only gets 40 to 60 miles on a charge. That's going to change by the time it ships. The batteries are back here behind the driver and passenger. Comfortably seats too. It wasn't any problem to get in or out. It kind of looks weird to get in and out, but it actually isn't bad at all. Driving around in this feels surprisingly like a regular car. Granted, it's very low to the ground and relatively small, and the windshield, as you can tell, is a little bit low. So it's kind of more of a go-kart, but a very comfortable go-kart. It's quiet, it's all electric. I don't know if I'd want to take it out on the street, but if you did and you got into a fender bender, just 3D print yourself a new part.
I came across Derby a little over 3 months ago now, I think. I had adopted a dog through this rescue group called Peace and Paws. He was born with deformed front legs. And I kept looking at his photo and hearing his story, and I cried literally every time. Finally, I messaged her and I was like, okay, I'll do it, foster, I'll take care of him. I had to try and help this dog. We decided to get him a cart, which worked quite well, but they limit his mobility in terms of being able to play with other dogs, and it's not really the full motion of running.
For this project, we're using a variety of 3D technologies, and that allows us to get in there and really modify the organic digital models quickly and easily, and start to do the sort of designs that Derek wants us to do.
The great thing about using 3D technology in Derby's case is having these images on file on a computer and being able to print them is a lot quicker than having to hand sculpt every single mold and rebuild these braces 5-10 times.
With prosthetics in general, a lot of the designs are going to this Running Man sort of look. And I was concerned with doing a Running Man that he would end up digging them into the dirt. And so that's really where I came up with the loop idea.
Hey Derb, you got your new legs.
We started him off very low, and so that it wouldn't be too drastic. We have a line called the Project 5500, which enables us to run dual materials. That has really been key with designing his prosthetics.
I got it. I don't become impressed very quickly, but when I saw him sprinting like that, it was amazing. It just, I couldn't believe it.
The first time he was put on them and he took off running, he was just so happy. I was absolutely amazed at how well he did.
He runs with Sherry and myself every day at least 2 to 3 miles. He runs faster than both of us. He never really tires out. He's just so happy to do that.
This is what 3D printing is all about. To be able to help anybody, dog, person, whoever, to have a better life is just, there's no better thing to be involved in.
Remember that guy who was designing a 3D printed handgun? Blam, he did it. I'm Anthony, and a little while back we talked about Defense Distributed, the group founded by University of Texas law student Cody Wilson, and their mission to build a 3D printable firearm that's safe for one shot and then distribute the plans free online. So we asked you whether you thought printed firearms and their plans should be regulated, and you guys responded really strongly, both for and against legislation. But here's the thing. That was all academic. Now it is real, because this week, Cody Wilson tested and fired the Liberator, the first 3D printed single-shot firearm. There's the remote test. And there is Cody firing by hand, which is actually pretty gutsy of him because one of the test guns exploded while firing. Now, 15 of the 16 parts of the pistol were printed with ABS plastic. The only other part is the firing pin, which is made up of a nail that you can pick up from a hardware store. Defense Distributed also added a chunk of steel inside the Liberator to comply with the Undetectable Firearms Act. Basically, they put it in there because the law says a gun has to set off metal detectors. Now, the plans of the gun are freely available online. It's a standard CAD file. Anyone is allowed to grab it and print it. Now, you should know that while something like MakerBot's Replicator or other home 3D printers could technically print finely enough to make a Liberator, Defense Distributed uses a really high-end printer, and they actually are working on a version that will work for home printers safely. So I wouldn't mess around with this unless you've got the equipment and the know-how, because that would be crazy dangerous, because it is a gun, you guys. It's a gun. And that's what's got a lot of people concerned. So currently the law says that you are allowed to make a firearm of your own. People have been making simple improvised weapons on their own since forever. Now, Senator Charles Schumer wants to regulate the distribution of plans and printing of firearms at home because the idea is 3D printing is such a smaller barrier to entry than we've ever had for making firearms. There are also concerns that while Defense Distributed is very careful about safety and even put that little chunk of steel into the Liberator, other people might not be. There's also a lot of worry that not regulating printed firearms will cast the entire 3D printing industry in a negative light, because the public may not understand the nuances involved here. People might start to think of 3D printers as weapon printing machines, which could cause over-regulation of the printers themselves just when the industry is getting off the ground. Stratasys, the people who make Defense Distributed's particular brand of 3D printer, actually took their machine back until Defense Distributed got a firearm manufacturer's license because they were worried about how the experiments would make their company look. Now, regardless of where you stand on this personally, you have to admit that this is a pretty amazing feat of engineering and a real example of the big changes 3D printing is going to bring to society. I don't know, what do you guys think? Now that this thing is real, is it time to talk about updating legislation, or is this a case where we need to reinforce protection of personal freedoms? Let me know down below and subscribe for more D News.
But can we also bring our digital models to the other side of the screen, to the other side of the glass, experience them here in the real world? Let's say I just want a physical printout of my digital model. Many people have seen 3D printers by now, and they're becoming much more affordable and much more capable very, very rapidly. And you probably know they're capable of printing some fairly simple 3D objects. But these days, they're capable of printing out some fairly complicated ones as well. Take a look at this. This is printed, comes right from the printer, already assembled and fully articulated, operational, right from the CAD drawing. Or you take a model and you print it in multiple materials at once. Here I've got something that's printed in multiple types of plastics, already articulated. That's pretty incredible. And you know, the things up here on the screen, I'm not sure how I'd manufacture that. Without a printout and without 3D printing, I think I'd be stuck with an Escher type of problem, trying to figure out how to unravel that thing. Now, these physical renditions of digital models really help you experience it, what it's going to be like when it is ultimately real. But you know, things at about this scale are still relatively small objects, right? You know, I wish I could print something much larger. I wish, in fact, that I could print something simply by going to File, Print, you know, just like I do a plot today. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. In cooperation with our friends at Stratasys, we can do just that. Hey, what do you think? That's more like it, right? You're looking at a full-scale printout. This is a full-scale model of a motorcycle that was originally designed in Inventor and it was made real using a 3D printer by our friends at Stratasys. This is one of the largest, most intricate 3D prints ever made. Talk about experiencing it before it's real, right?